Down over there in the peanut gallery, please.
This is a business.
Not the business of the committee. Take your stuff outside. Okay, I'll be in order. First order of business is to accept the minutes for the April 19th, 2022 meeting. Can I have a motion to accept those?
Moved.
Second. Second by Cassie. Any omissions or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. County business not here today, but I believe Deb's going to put the reports up on the screen for us to look at. Always amazing when it's sent versus received. 84 advisories on vulnerability security updates, reviewing just distributed and remediated where necessary. You see 3 advisories relating to election subject, shared with colleagues, pertinent situational awareness notifications. The item's interest reported phishings where bad actors mimicking custom email login page. Permanent security release essential cyber hygiene reference document. So redressed. Any questions on that? Maybe Terry can answer the questions. That was easy.
Yep.
Al?
I don't have a question, but a comment. When I was out in Syracuse at training, the classes that I had the pleasure of attending was co-hosted by Karen about cybersecurity. So it was really nice to see one of ours out there in a training performance, and she did a very good job. And they handed out, it's called Cybersecurity Primer, I think is the name of it. And it's meant to be a nice desk reference tool for people that are, plugged into the internet and stuff. It was very interesting. I just wanted to mention that, give Karen a recognition that I thought she did a very great job. And I thought that the desk reference was a nice tool to have. They can always get us more of them if anybody finds it something they might be in need of. I guess you can get it electronically too through the website, and then I could send that out to people if so that group that she belongs to, statewide group, has a website that you can download the primer as well, I guess. So
yeah,
very interesting. I just wanted to.
Does a very good job with cybersecurity.
Yep, she was very knowledgeable, handled questions very well. Very nice.
Nice to hear that. Okay. Information technology, Terry, it's in your bailiwick.
okay. Do you want me to, I have not been in a meeting in this room before. Do you need me to come anywhere or? Usually it's not there.
So I'm in the wrong seat apparently.
Sorry.
So Al, you're on flight.
I zoomed in at his meeting. I think having somebody there from a audio and visual standpoint to them is a big advantage.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the microphone is, but.
No, but along the sides is not an advantage at all.
Exactly. It's really hard.
Horrible.
Okay.
So Terry,
I have the reports and ticketing report, and the project report. They were sent out ahead of time. I don't know if anybody had any questions on either of those. And then if not, the other business that we have is to bring forward a request. I guess we have to do a motion for a request to do an RFP for the chambers, the second floor chambers upgrade, IT upgrade.
okay. So
I move that.
Cassie, do you have a second? I think
Just a second. What's that entails? There's a discussion that we're going to have that we're going to upgrade all the.
Yeah, we need to upgrade like the microphone system and the technology that's inside the chamber. It's very, very old.
Okay.
And so we're looking to do an upgrade for it, but it's going to go beyond the typical purchasing. So we want to do an RFP.
Is it for remote meetings and Zoom and things like that?
Not only that, I mean, it can be used, some of it for that, but
Right.
the main function is for all of the recording in there, to be able to do presentations in there. and just bring it up to technology. The system that's in there, can't recall how old it is. I'd say at least 15 years or more. Oh, there you go. I mean, we tried to adapt it, we tried to record it.
And you get a third party vendor to give you a proposal.
Correct.
Is this the one that we discussed and the estimate was 100,000? And at that time, I thought the committee decided they were gonna hold off and see how it fit in the budget, at budget time.
That's what I was gonna ask next. Thank you.
Yeah, but no, we didn't discuss that and the committee agreed to that.
Yep.
Why are we doing this?
Because the Commissioner of Social Services has ARPA money that can qualify and be used for the upgrade of that meeting space as far as the audio and visual technology equipment. So that's what we're looking into now.
And
to
that's
see what that
different
costs.
ARPA money than the ARPA money
Yes,
that
it is. Yeah,
$360,000 of money.
right.
that they can't use anywhere else they can use.
They are using it. Yeah, she had brought that to Health and Human Services for training room upgrades, audio-visual upgrades, office furniture, all of that kind of thing. It can't be used for actual program administration. It's got to be used for
It's all admin
other
money.
items.
If she received half of it or going to receive all of it.
It's reimbursement based, so it's spending it. It's been allocated to her. She would spend it, then put a claim in it and get paid back.
Our money through the state.
So- Through the HEAP program.
Well, do I sit at the floor? And I'm not opposed to this, but what I'm opposed to or do, this is what I don't like, is if a committee votes to hold off and not to do it, which they did. Now, you just got it on the floor that we're gonna put it out RFP and it'll probably pass. But shouldn't you start it out by saying that we have found money and that, you know, we want to reconsider this and approach it from that way, because some members might not have known that the committee voted this down.
So we had talked about it in government ops, I believe, at one point. And yet then you're
That I
right,
had
it was
missed?
just gonna be, no, I think that was
Oh.
the one that you're referring to.
Yeah.
And then that was we were gonna wait until it was
Right.
budgeted and talked about. And then Tammy had brought it to her committee, the availability of these funds, where she has a timeline where the money has to be spent by the end of September. And I think it was at government ops, it may have been at Health and Human Services. I mentioned the fact that this would be a possibility to help assist with that cost, because the cost was pretty high.
Yeah.
And then I think she brought it back to Health and Human Services, that was her plan for the upgrades for this meeting space up here, as well as the training rooms and offices within her department. So now we're coming here because now it's really back to IT, because they're the ones that would put out the RFP.
So in other words, funding source changed.
Yes.
Well, that's not the issue. The issue is the approach. So, and I'm not opposed to it. That's my only issue. If a committee votes it down and instead of that committee's the one that's in charge of it, it ought to be made public to everybody before it comes here. And I don't have a problem. Now that I understand what happened, I don't have a problem. I don't like the procedure. And I'm glad you're doing it. Well,
To start a double team with Dan saying, I get it. You have a need, you have a funding source, solution to a problem. I guess I'm asking, as you get the RFP back, where does the governance lie to decide whether to move forward with it or not?
Health and Human
Finance, Health and Human
Services.
Services, government ops, IT.
Yeah, we were thinking Health and Human Services is where it would be awarded, because it's funding, it's her funding, it's her money that would pay for it.
So the Health and Human Services Committee would approve the RFP if we feel it's within the range
To award it.
to award it. Then it goes to finance, the
Finance.
full board, or where does it go? I'm just I want to plan this out so we don't get caught unaware.
Well, I think that would be it, because it wouldn't have been finance, because the budget's already in place. You passed the budget Friday.
So we'd have to award it to the full board.
So we go there. Terry sent the RFP out, she'd bring it to Health and Human Services. They would approve it to the full board would approve the RFP, and then if they award the contract.
Right.
Spend up an hour back, you're right.
Yeah, that's.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
And why would it skip finance? I guess.
The budget's already in place.
There's no amendment. We approved it last Friday.
Right.
As long as we all know, I just wonder.
It's not a straight route, that's for sure.
I know, I see they're all integrated.
Creative thinking.
Okay. I had a motion on the, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Daryl and Sue. Any further discussion?
Sorry. So there's technical stuff inside that RFP. Would Terry bring it back here to say, well, you know, this vendor didn't really follow the RFP, this vendor did, and or would you come to HHS and then vet all that stuff for us there?
I'd be happy to go to HHS. This is the first RFP I've ever done.
I'm asking Dave, do you want to come here first, or can you lend Terry to HHS so we can get that figured out once?
Yeah, because otherwise it doesn't make sense to have an engineer get
Right.
straight to HHS.
Unfortunately, and part of the reason why this is, I guess, is, I don't know, seems rushed or hodgepodge is maybe the word as it seems, is because there's such a timeline on this money and she has to have it spent by the end of September.
No, I get it. I just don't want it to go to HHS. I want a little bit, and Terry says, wait a minute, you know what? They're not
No.
Oh, no,
qualified.
no.
That's the wrong stuff.
No, she's actually gonna be very involved in the entire RFP process.
I don't think we're going after low bid.
No, we're going
No.
to best.
No, we're going for best value.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Okay.
Wait, you asked me.
Aye.
I thought you were going to other.
I didn't see in the corner there.
I'll wait for the other.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any other business?
I don't have anything else.
I can't see anyone else. Raise a hand. Dana?
This is for Terry. Does the county maintain a list of email addresses that you forbid access to county things if you go to a county website? That's right.
What do you mean? Like,
I tried to go to the county image mate last week and the county clerk looked up deed and parcel information and it told me that I was forbidden to access this site. I'm just wondering why it says you are forbidden. It's just,
Probably use
we
your.
have to look at it. The forbidden will come up if you do
Knock,
webpage.
knock,
It's not valid. It doesn't have anything to do with email addresses or.
Laura,
different IP
Terry.
addresses.
We got the answer. over there.
Oh,
We're
okay.
having an issue. We have a work order into your
Okay.
department. We're having some problems with people that are using older cell phone devices. Was what was mentioned, Tom Rockford from IT is working on it, but we
Slide
have had some
behind
faults on
color.
that. You may have to turn your phone off.
It's my laptop that I'm doing, but it's a Windows 10.
Oh, that should work, but clean out all your cookies and
You're not-
cash out your cash.
You're not using internet. Do you know which browser you're using?
Google Chrome,
Yeah,
That
it
should be
should
good
work.
as long
but
as
I
it's
try to
up
go to the county clerk deed access or image mate. And it says forbidden, I do not have permission to access.
They got your number.
date. Yeah, so the deed access would be, I would think, unrelated to
Right,
image mate.
we are
Those
getting the
different.
forbidden on the image made, we've had a couple calls on that, so we are trying to work through, most of it's cleaning out, I mean, like, our website changed. So you gotta make sure you go to the IMO.WashingtonCounty.NY.gov,
Not CO.
Not the old
Washington.
Well, I do go to the county website,
and then you
and
link,
then I go underneath image mate,
that should
and that's
work,
when it tells me I'm forbidden.
okay, that should work.
Good thing you're from Hartford.
You can bring your laptop out if you want at some point, we can
We can take a look at it.
take a
It
look.
sounds like an.
I don't want you looking at my. I got puppy pictures.
Gotcha.
I didn't know if maybe it was tagging me as an undesirable.
You never know, right?
Horrible, ultra MAGA. I'm all of those.
No, because actually even our website just dishes off different places. So like you go to our main website, IMO is actually hosted here. We have physical on-prem servers that host that, whereas the clerks does not. That actually goes out somewhere else entirely. So they wouldn't be related unless there's something with your computer that could be preventing it. I don't know if you try to reboot just to ask, but
Just shake your head.
sometimes that
Okay.
Yes, Yeah, I do, but I don't have any problem going anywhere else.
yeah. So I'd have to see it, but
All right,
we can
I'll
certainly.
Did pulling up this photo coming out for bid won't help you at all?
No, the photo, I'd have to see, I got the information where you are.
Oh, well, I had the address for it once you read the tool.
Right, but that is, wouldn't be like your IP to be able to change it.
All right, I'll try again. Okay,
Try
I can
again.
call you again.
And then call me, and I can log in remotely with you. We can take a look.
Just buy the computer and use it.
I don't even have a battery in my computer. I don't need that.
All right.
All right.
Any other business?
The diesel
We can
computer
do something for you.
runs on diesel fuel.
Runs out now.
No other business? We're adjourned.
Thank you for you.
Oh, we put this picture.
I'm pretty sure that was sweet, man.
I know you're having.
Yeah.
I eventually got it. I eventually got it. I took a big load one time.
It like got perfect stop.
All right, do I have enough people?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's also says I accept at one point.
Yes.
Did we didn't accept?
That's not something, yeah, it's like.
Yeah.
Okay, you wanna call the government ops meeting to order? First motion is to accept the minutes of April 19th, 2022. Can I have a motion? Moved by Dave. And a second by Jim. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next up is Laura. Real property.
Everyone, I am here I have a part-time assessor position that I would like to backfill, so I'm here to ask for a backfill on that position. Don't they just go to?
Yeah, you don't need approval for the back.
Okay.
That's a go straight.
This is all
personnel.
leading to another
And
conversation.
leading to another conversation on this is assessor shortage. The year 2025 is the year that a lot of your assessors, or all your assessors, except if they're elected, will come for reappointment. That's 3 years away. It takes an assessor approximately 3 years to be trained to become a certified assessor, going through the Assessors Association, New York State for training and things like that. So I'm just getting the word out that if you feel that your assessor will be retiring anytime in the near future, or you're going to be looking for an assessor, don't wait till 2025. Now is the time that we have to start looking into that. With me looking for a part-time assessor, there are not a lot of assessors out there looking for, looking to become an assessor when they grow up. I do have a gentleman locally who is looking to become an assessor, but in order for him to start training through New York State Office of Tax and Finance, he has to be a member, or he has to be employed by New York State, Washington, or a county, or a town for him to start classes. So it kind of puts you into a little spot where in order for you to get somebody trained, or the towns or the county or whatever, to get somebody trained to become an assessor, they kind of have to be in the office, in your office at the town, in working for county staff, something along that lines. I don't have any money in my budget this year, but next year I do plan on putting in my budget, unless you guys want to give me some money, to start a program where we can get some staff in here part-time that can start training to become assessors, whether it be at the county level or town level or whatever may happen going forward. Any questions on that part?
Daryl had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Daryl.
No, thank you. So that last comment answered part of my question. And the first question I have, anyone know if Bill McCarty's going to retire? Because if he is, we got to get on that train you just talked about.
I spoke, yeah. I'll be in touch.
Dan?
Yeah, Laura, just the way you worded it, that's not clear to me. If an elected assessor, it takes 3 years to get trained, but they're still an assessor and they're qualified to do their job, or you're saying that?
I said, except elected assessors. Elected assessors are supposed to be trained to hold their position. If they don't get trained and they can rerun, because they're a 4-year term, they can rerun again and start all over.
Right, but
We've had a lot that are.
they are qualified from the get-go if they're elected.
They're elected, yes.
Okay, but your appointed ones aren't qualified until they've had 3 years of training.
Unless they come to us qualified already.
Right, but if they're not qualified already, like if we wanted to hire somebody and an appointed assessor, they've got to be already qualified to start working.
They have to be qualified by New York State to start the training to become an assessor. There's qualifications similar to county directors. The assessors have to meet qualifications to become an assessor, not elected, but anybody that's appointed. They have to fall under certain qualifications to become appointed as assessor, county director position.
But if they weren't elected already and they got their training, we could appoint them as an appointed assessor.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
So you can't get going in the system unless you're already in the system. But you have to take classes, but you can take classes until you're already working.
Correct.
Typical state of New York, right?
Yeah.
I guess, Laura, that I'd say I'm very open to that discussion going forward, because there's 17 of us and we're all sort of a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to think that you would have discussions with the budget officer about 2023 in your office, but really from a bigger picture, by putting a burden on you to sort of do a little bit of a canvassing of the 17 towns to see where the lay of the land is,
Yeah, we have.
get an idea on,
Mhm.
okay, here's a plan, not just a financial plan, but a plan
Correct.
saying if you need services. I don't think any of us really want to go to countywide assessing if we don't have to.
No,
We like
that's
that-
not what
we like that local
Right,
thing.
yeah.
I'm just saying, it's not inevitable, but
Even
maybe
countywide could retire.
Yeah.
in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, the landscape has changed significantly. Let's get a plan now.
Right, and there's not a lot of people lining up, and it's statewide, and when you talk to New York State, the county directors have talked to them, and they said, well, it falls back to the county. Well, really, it falls back to the towns. The towns are the ones that appoint your assessors. So, you know, this is just a process to kind of. Yeah.
Dana?
Laura, in order to be qualified to be appointed, you have to have certain criteria, like a realtor or an appraiser. You have to have certain
Yes.
knowledge to be appointed. So if you wanted to appoint somebody, you have only the pool of qualified people that you would appoint, and then that person would get the training.
Correct.
So when you say 3 years, you mean it takes 3 years to get all the experience to be a good assessor? Or is the training program 3 years?
The training program runs approximately 3 years. Now, if the towns were to hire somebody who's already an appraiser, they may already have some of those classes done. Somebody who's, you know, in the real estate world, they may already have some type of classes done. But the normal person, you're hiring somebody and they're gonna start classes, it's approximately 3 years for them to complete all their training, because a lot of the classes are held once a year at Cornell, where the Assessors Association does their meetings. So it's a week-long class of cost and, you know, valuation, income, and, you know, different things. So it's a cycle.
Are we, as town level, if you have an appointed assessor, are we prevented from hiring just anyone? It has to be a certain criteria that you can hire.
They have to meet the qualifications of New York State, and you have to send a qualification letter to New York State Department of Tax and Finance to make sure that person does qualify before you can appoint.
What are some of the things that would qualify a person?
Well, some of the things we saw, if they've got a background in those things, if they've done valuation, if they've taken the classes up through. So if you were to, you know, if you have somebody for a bigger town where they may have a clerk, they can have the clerk, and not really doesn't happen in most Washington County, but if you've got a town that has a clerk and the clerk can start training while they're there working under the assessor, you know.
It's more of a certification than a qualification, isn't it?
Quali-
They need to get to a certain level before they become an assessor.
They need to meet certain qualifications,
Before you
yes,
can even-
and then they can become certified after they take all the
They gotta
classes.
be certified.
But in order for
They
you to
don't have to
appoint
be
them before the certification, they have to have
You can
qualifications.
appoint somebody before they're certified.
You can appoint somebody before they're certified,
Okay.
yes, but they must meet the minimum qualifications in New York State.
You can get Laura to come when you do the interviews.
So the normal progression would be to appoint somebody as a clerk, have them work as a clerk for 3 years, take their training and then.
If you can find, yeah, definitely, if you can,
That would be the,
find somebody to work as an assessor's clerk and they can get, you know, I mean, there's valuation, there's different things that fall into play. And they can move up that way.
Just two things. Number one, there's a very specific civil service silo for assessor's clerk. You have to
Yes.
be minimum qualified just to get to that point.
Right, yeah.
Are you doing assessing services, i.e. no appointed or elected assessors for any towns in Washington County currently?
We're doing it, so yes, we are.
Who's that?
Cambridge.
Cambridge?
And 40.
40, okay. So you have a foundation to see how that's going.
But not right now, I'm looking for a part-time assessor.
I know.
That's the one that's retiring.
When we get there, we've got to get feedback from those two towns and say how
It's
it's
worked
going
good.
through the county.
Yeah,
It's
we've been
worked
doing
well.
it for a few years.
Mhm.
And we do data collection for,
A lot.
four towns. We do data collection.
I think it's been 40 longer than I've been.
Yes.
40 started first
Yeah.
and then we've been there.
Been like 3 years.
The bigger issue on that was always when it came to grievance day. So how has that worked? Because grievance day is still your own people, but now we're working with the county assessors. That gone really
The
well.
county assessor is still the assessor, yes. Yeah.
It's still exciting.
Okay, 'cause I remember that when we had that discussion 8-10 years ago.
It's not held on the same day, so the assessor in one place
Yeah.
one day and another place.
Right.
So that was the bigger question. I remember in the initial conversation was, well, you still have your own board of assessment review. And they're like, yeah, but it's not our assessor. How's that working?
But it's still
But
an
if it's
assessor.
working, if it's working well, that's good.
I mean, this is just heads up to the towns that may anticipate retirement or something.
What's all?
But it is close to a 3-year training
What do
period,
you do all?
and maybe your assessor's gonna be there for 25 more years. Or it's a 6-year term, so maybe they're gonna be there for 30 more years, whatever. But just, you know, just a reminder, now that I have a position that's open, I just wanted to mention it to everybody. And another thing, today is Grievance Day. There are now 9 towns in Washington County that are doing the Grievance Day today. I'll be going around to a few of them later on, actually this evening, some of our reval towns, just to make sure everything's running smoothly there. And our website, we have a new GIS website, and if you're using that on your phone and you're not seeing the bottom where you can agree, you have to tip your phone sideways, so that's a quirk to that. There's nothing we can change on that. And if you are having problems with the forbidden, you can call our office and we'll note that, and we've already got work orders into Terry's staff so that we can get that, figure out what is going on. It's on the user level, it's not on our county level. Our website is working okay. It's on this, whatever device the person is using, be it a laptop or something, so.
Dan Chap.
Yeah, actually, it's probably geared more towards you, Cassie, as a question, but maybe you both can answer. Does the county provide all your services now for assessment?
Mhm.
So they do the data collection and you assessor work, right?
And it's worked well, so hopefully whoever
Well, that's.
gets hired will be just as good.
My question is, what's the average cost per year for that?
It's a set cost per
It's a
parcel.
set cost per parcel.
$12.
$12.
$12, oh, you do by the parcel?
By the parcel. So if we have subdivisions, it does change.
Oh, sure.
Right.
So
But
it's by
$12
parcel.
a parcel, I can run those numbers by me and see what it costs us.
Anytime. You have a person board, so you'd have to do a local law change.
Well, my concern is going to full value with the GAR and everything, is our assessors have to keep up on everything, on the appraisals, and I don't know if they're gonna, so I want to have a backup plan if they don't.
So they definitely don't.
What's it worth? That's why you got to do it.
Who was it? Oh, yeah. Okay. That's what I
That's all I have. Anybody have any?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay,
That's right.
Matt, you're up. She didn't make that.
I didn't have any more.
Oh, the backfill. You said-
The backfill.
The backfill
Yeah.
goes to you.
The backfill was just a reading out to another.
Turn, Matt.
You present everything anyway.
All right, so first thing
1,600.
is we're gonna, same thing that Terry just did, the DSS heat ARPA funds. One of the projects that was identified by Tammy and myself was to redo a lighting project on the first floor, and she can get that part of it, so basically changing out, fluorescents with LED lights. So
I thought that was a good project. Basically, they're paying for it, we're gonna get the savings, without doing the work. So what I need is just to let you know that I'm gonna put out a public bid for that lighting project.
So you're
Next
requesting.
week. Yep, so go out and obviously I'll come back and get the award or whatever by full board. But I think it encompasses all of the first floor of building B and then the training rooms downstairs.
So you're going for an RFP? Or? just
No, this is
quotes?
public bid. Yeah, there's different. RFP is
Yep, okay.
for a proposal. I'm going out 405 lights. How much is it? So we'll put it out and then the lowest bid will get it. Yes.
Yeah,
I thought there's a timetable on this. Can you do a bid or the contract and get it done by the
Well,
time?
I've already wrote the bid. It's gonna go in the public newspaper this week and then it'll be out, and it's only a 2-week. It's a very simple bid. It's 405 lights, replace them and go. And I put in the bid, timeline must be done by September 15th. So if they respond to the bid, they're on the hook to have it done.
You normally put bids out without authorization of it,
No, I do not.
or you seeking authorization? Because you said you're doing it.
So this is the same thing, like finance, you guys just approved to spend them. You approved the 300 and something thousand. So usually I always come when I say out the bids, but there's not usually a resolution about the bid. You always award them. And we usually inform that we are going to go out to bid. And I see at that point, there's discussion and if you said, no, we'll stop. But it's always transparent when I go out to bid and that's why it's on here.
I guess going back to Mr. Hickey's plan with our ARPA money, is there a plan from the DSS to say, okay, we're gonna do this on IT, we're gonna do this on the ground, this and this, and this is the total?
yeah.
That's what I was gonna mention. I missed the HHS meeting, but I think that if the plan wasn't given to the board, maybe Tammy needs to circle back around and have you. She has a loose framed spending plan.
I may have missed that, but if
David
we
General.
can see that again, that'd be great.
But yeah, if the committee doesn't have it, I would recommend Tammy would circle back to HHS with it, because there was a plan developed by the commissioner for those monies. Yeah.
Tomorrow's
HHS, right?
Yes.
Maybe they can.
So I didn't realize that the committee hadn't seen it.
I thought
She
had
did give,
presented.
she
may have.
did,
She gave us, yeah.
Okay.
She had presented.
So there is, yeah, so that could be rehanded out, just so everybody got comfortable with what was.
And obviously because of the timeline we're down, I gave her a budget number for lights, but I don't have the bid, so it's in there. Obviously, she's trying to maximize the funds and anything I can do that we're gonna get money back out of, like lights or efficiency, something like that. I push for. All right, the parks are gonna be open this weekend. First weekend, we are still short 1 lifeguard in Lauderdale and 3 in Hewlett's, which is right now for the weekends is okay, but when we get full time, that's going to be tough in Hewlett. So if anybody knows of any kids that are certified for lifeguarding, we are actively looking still.
How about our class? How did it go?
The class that Mike puts on downstairs, it was full. They fill it every year, but it's not always necessarily right. It doesn't necessarily. Some of them are research for people that we already have. We do take advantage of it, but you can't make them come work for us if they got a different job.
Right.
So if there's any other, I guess the only other thing, I don't know if I brought it up last time, down at the park in Lauderdale, the cabin is deteriorating pretty bad. And as we all know, I did bring it up. I guess I don't really have any other information other than I have reached out to the state and they're looking for us to get some sort of professional estimate on what needs to be done to the cabin. But she did remind us that the contract is up in 2 years for the state and the county for Lake Lauderdale. So
The contractor.
yeah, so we lease
Yeah,
the property in the park from New York State.
Right.
And it was a 20-year agreement in, I think, 2024, November 30th of 2024, that lease expires.
How long
That expense in our county budget for a lease expense.
It was $1. It was a $1 lease.
But it's the cost of running it is what always comes up.
Right,
Right.
and in the lease agreement, which there is a contract, which I do have, and it tells us what we have to do to fulfill, our end of the lease, and that's operate the park and hire electric, just to operate the park.
And if they would operate the park, it would be fine if it went back, but if it's just gonna be closed, it's really not in our best interest.
No. Sue?
Elaine Chinian reached out to me, Matt, about the Lake Lauderdale Park and the building on the park. And I think she'd like to be able to maybe meet with Cassie and you and whoever to talk about that agreement between the state and what they can do to help assist with that building. I don't know if did she reach you?
Does she just want to speak with us to let us know that it's in bad shape and it needs help, or does she have a funding source and wants to know if we can use the funding source to help fix it?
Funding source.
So she has a funding source?
Possibly, and she is willing to sit down and talk with us about it. Matt, maybe you should give her a call. Do you have Elaine's number?
Yes, yeah, actually, I reached out to her and then she reached out to you.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's worth the conversation, right?
Yep. Dana?
But the funding source is not in question because it's right now, that's New York State is the funding source, right? They own the cabin,
They own the cabin, we're supposed to maintain and operate.
but we wouldn't rebuild it on our source, our funding source. The New York State would pay for that if they're gonna.
Well,
do
that's
that.
why I'm bringing it up. That's why we haven't fixed it in the last few years. The one thing that we're running into problems with though is that's also the office and that's the staff break room and everything that, we hire the staff to operate the park and it's pretty close to being condemned, so we wouldn't even have a place or like the office for the park manager or a break room for the lifeguards to get out of the sun without this building.
But still, New York State, I would guess, would pay for that. That's why they're
Well,
asking for an estimate.
that's what we're trying to, that would be my goal, would be New York would pay for us to either put a new, I think the building's past fixing up, that's the problem.
Oh,
The foundation, the roof, it's past fixing up. It really needs to be, it's unsafe. It needs to be taken down. And something put there. So,
What's the lease up?
2024, November 30th.
There's down a plaque on it says something about historical because that's be.
Well, I don't know that stuff, and that's what I did reach out there to start the conversation and just bring it up to everybody. So you have,
plaque on there.
so you have the information. If you're interested, you can reach back to me and see where we're getting with it. It's just one of those
Brian?
we're working on.
Is there any chance the state would put the new building on it?
The last time I went down this road, it was probably 3 years ago, and it was after I started, and they were willing to pay for materials to fix it, but not labor. Which at the time, we didn't have the labor to do it to start with, but they wanted to put, a tin roof over a rotten roof. And the foundation is crumbling. It's cabled together with cables, the building is held together with steel cables. I really wasn't ready to go down having my guys put some lipstick on it and have it, be their liability all of a sudden because the state paid for the materials. So.
Dave?
So if the lease is up in 2024,
Yes.
shouldn't we at least start talking about whether they want to release it to us before we talk about spending any labor or anything in that building?
That's why I brought that up. I mean, in my prior discussions also 3 years ago, at the time, the state is still super happy with us just operating. So they would probably, I would say their goal, unless it's changed, would be to sign another $1 lease with the county and let them operate it for another 20 years. At the time, that was the feeling. I didn't have that in writing or anything, but that was the discussion.
Dana?
So maybe this idea that Sue has, maybe that would fund the labor. If the state's still saying the same thing, they'll supply the material, we supply the labor, maybe that would help us with the labor expense.
But is there a difference? They offer the materials to repair it. Now we're
Yes.
talking about complete reconstruction foundation on us. That may change your,
Minor detail. Minor detail.
okay.
Matt's also saying the foundation's no good.
That's why I said foundation up.
Yeah, and feel free to stop, it's open, you know, or whatever, but you can see what I'm talking about when you look at it.
I mean,
Maybe.
All right, that's really informational. I don't have anything solid now, but we will be talking to, you know, the parks. And I'll try to get their feeling again, you know, if they still are in the same boat. We'd like the county to operate it for 20 more years and sign it. At least I can relay that to you. And then be up to you guys if you're gonna do that or not. All right. Just a quick update. The rooftop units are started yesterday. You probably saw the crane when you pulled in, maybe out back. They're doing that project, hoping to have it 90% done by Thursday. And then next week, finish up 10%. Now we'll go to Fort Ann Barn. Okay. So we did put out the RFP. We got the amounts back. We had 5 firms come back. I don't know. We have to discuss the 5. They're proposals, so we can choose. We have the freedom to choose any of the 5. I don't know if we could go to executive session to go over that. We can't award it today because it still has to be pending the town of Fort Ann's approval also, you know, because it's a combined amount. So we can either do it in regular session or executive session.
Are they public bids?
What's that?
Are they public bids?
They're not bids, they're proposals, but we have the town of Fort Ann and, you know, there's also kind of like.
No, I'm in for executive session. I didn't know why you
Yeah.
need to go into executive session to read it off.
Okay, I can read them off, but I can do that or.
Are we gonna negotiate with?
Well, what's gonna come up is the percentage, you know, back and forth of what's Fort Ann's and what's, you know, ours. And then what the next step is, so we can have Roger write up, you know, an agreement for the town of Fort Ann, because I'm gonna need to go back to their town and then they're gonna have to, it's all on the same price though. So it's never just our approval, it's like back and forth. So there is
That's total amount for the barn.
the total amount,
And then
yes.
to discuss or determine the share breakdown.
Sure.
The proposals were build us a barn, or the proposals were build us a barn exactly like this, well, all 5 proposals are exactly the same footprint, the same kind of barn, or is it, we need to do these
It's a
things?
proposal because it's professional service. It's not a public bid because we don't spec, a public bid will be the building. We don't spec the materials in this. What we
Where am I
do-
lost?
No, what Matt's
So,
asking is if
The
you have the
proposal
open
was
space.
for the engineering firm to design for what we'll want to build to bid.
This engineering.
So this is the engineering part.
I
The
missed that.
reason you'd go to executive session, and this is the only reason I think you'd go to executive sessions, you work with all these people throughout the year. They probably don't want to know everything about what you think,
Well, my recommendation,
You like
I
to
work
keep
with
them
all these
guessing,
engineers.
and you're
for
gonna
other
make some
projects.
upset and.
Right. Like, I work with all these engineers, which is fine, it is what it is, because it's professional, but I work with these engineers for other projects, like some are engineering this, some are engineering that. I'm gonna be giving
I would think that with all of us just debating it, that we really should have the lawyer's opinion on whether or not we're making them public or not. Maybe we
I'll
should
just do
set
it
to the
public, and that
side.
way we don't have to worry about executive session. I mean, what the worst thing they're gonna do is be like, geez, Matt, why didn't you?
We need to have
recommend us?"
reasons, there's a checklist.
Yeah, why didn't you
there's
just
criteria.
recommend, you
that
know,
they
why
had to
didn't you
meet.
recommend us, you know, or whatever, as I'm getting prices on them for another project, that's all.
I did send Dan Martin.
These are professional services for the engineering of the design of the building.
Yes.
Why don't I just-
So it's not subject to lowest bid
Right.
because it's a professional
It's not
service.
contract negotiations, it's not personnel, it's not union
They're
negotiations.
looking to see if Dan is
It's not a
available.
public
because-
safety issue, there's 7 criteria for executive session, I'm not sure if it's
Yeah.
And, you know,
We're just
it's
getting a
fine.
lawyer to check.
I don't-
There went to see if Dan Martindale was in, just to make sure. Did you have anything else you wanted to jump through? I had to check in. The other building is the same thing.
Gonna go down to 8. Well, the next one is Middle Falls, but
Doesn't smell
Update.
eligible to me, but
that's
I'm not an attorney.
right.
Oh,
Right,
no,
well, that's the only thing. You guys are all debating it back and forth, so let's just make sure before we do the wrong thing. It only takes a couple of minutes to check. We've wasted.
I mean, usually I give my recommendation. You could ask me, you know, you can ask me why or whatever, this and that.
Hey, Matt, I got a question.
Sure.
Have the DPWs looked at this yet?
Yes,
Are they good with it?
yes.
Thank you.
Sure. While we're waiting for that, if related to this, if the committee wanted to move the ball forward a little bit while you're waiting for advice from council, the two other things that we will need is the approval for the chairman or whoever, probably vice chairman in this case, to sign the MOA with the town of Fort Anne. And there'll be two, actually. There'll be one for the barn and there'll be one for the borrowing. Because we're gonna borrow together on this as well. They're both gonna require MOAs between Washington County and the town. My guess is that it will probably be vice chairman in this case rather than chairman, but those two MOAs you could probably do. as a-
Yeah, I had them there. I was just waiting.
No, but I thought maybe well, unless it was out, those were the easier piece of this that you could move forward to authorize the MOAs.
mechanically, who's going to make the discussion with the town of Fort Anne about this, where negotiation comes in here about?
Yes, that's,
Who's that entity? Is it a committee? Is it a person? It's obviously not
so,
the chairman.
so it's the,
So somebody,
basically-
this committee will get a recommendation, say, based upon this, we're gonna pay 48%, they're gonna pay 52%, or whatever the number's gonna be. Is there a back and forth?
I give it, sure. There's
So
something.
who's gonna be the fourth for us, and who's gonna be the back for them? I mean,
Their board is to be theirs and
this committee or the whole board?
The committee.
Fourth.
and then you're gonna, at the same time, the whole board is still gonna have to pass it. So it'd come out of this committee. My idea is let's go forward.
But if we're gonna negotiate, that's not something in public session.
I would think your county attorney, the town attorney would have the conversation and then bring a final product
Back
So-
to the board.
There's a draft right now. My idea was to have the draft to go into executive session to discuss the draft. So you guys can, like, here's the MOA. Read it, pick it apart,
Okay.
right? Edit it, Roger edits it, and then we go to the town of Fort Anne. They do the same thing. Once we agree, it goes, you know, their board passes.
I didn't know who was gonna do it. I know we're gonna get a third party outside, it's like, you know,
Well,
Alan Brown.
So the original study of the engineering gave us a suggestion of 64. You know, they
Okay.
gave us a suggestion, and then. we're gonna do-
46.
Yes.
Yes.
40, 60, you got it. So,
Sam's only on video. He doesn't know. We can tell
Okay.
him we're gonna have to do
Yep.
80%.
so we got it, so we skipped ahead a little bit later, and now we're gonna go back, and then we're gonna go back forward again. All right. So we got 5 bids, the lowest bids, proposals. The lowest is $470,000, the company is Labella out of Latham. The second is $470,925, that's CNS Engineering, Albany. The third was ME Engineering. I skipped that, I'm sorry. Third was BCA Architects out of Saratoga at $496,700. And the fourth, ME Engineering at $566,810. And the fifth was Prime AE at $749,000. So 4 of them were rather close. One took a shot at it, I think, you know, from a distance. I reviewed all these. I interviewed starting with the lowest one first, and they can do the work. I mean, there was nothing to disqualify them at all. So my recommendation is Labella at $470,000. They answered all the questions that I gave them.
How much was the next?
1,000 more.
$925
What was the
more.
second one?
CNS Engineering?
They sound familiar. Did they do the parking lot study?
No, They didn't, CNS is a big company though. You'll see them around. They are a big company.
So that would, a lot of municipal work too.
They've done, LaBella's done a bunch. ME Engineering is the company that did our preliminary study and is doing our Middle Falls one right now. They're also the firm that we have on retainer. So they just came in, they went to highest, but they came in, you know, within reason, really, when you put out a bid that, or a proposal that close, you did all right when you get 4 of them all within that close together. You know, they're not strung out all over the place. So
Dan?
Matt, can you just lightly summarize what is it that they're going to do as the engineering company? I know they're gonna design the barn structurally, but what else? Do they write all the contracts?
yes,
The bids?
they write all the construction contracts. They actually, all the documents that go out to bid, they do. They take care of all of the DEC permitting, you know, AFUSDA, anything that comes along with that. They do all the testing for the groundwork, so all the drilling and everything you need to do to be able to do it.
So they do sites of
It's from start, so this price is from start to finish, all the way to the commissioning of the building. You know, it's a one lump sum that goes, you have different phases.
So they do the inspections too, to make sure.
That's right. They do all the inspections.
That's right, they do construction administration, so they're gonna be on site. And not every minute, but for everything that's happening, they're on site. And they're answering the questions to the contractors of, okay, you know, hey, here's a problem here, you know, where they have to take care of those questions.
Now, on a project like this, what does county code? Are they involved at all?
Yeah,
Or
they'll be working with county code. They'll have to work with county code.
Okay. And now, do they lay out the picture? You had kind of a general picture with the parking lot and all. And now, is that what we're gonna end up with, or will it change when they?
So that was the original design that we gave them. Their first meeting will be with a working group, you know, maybe the same working group that we had when we come up with that. And they're gonna say, okay, is this what you want? They're gonna do the same thing. This is exactly what you want, this blah, 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 blah. And then they're gonna start designing, and then they'll have progress meetings back and forth, you know. And so, yeah, it might not be exactly the same, but they're gonna take in all the, you know, small recommendations and, okay, they're gonna dial it in exactly.
And will they lock in a number of the cost of the project?
And then, well, they'll assume it more. You never lock in a number until you go out to public bid, but they'll dial it in for sure, you know, because as they get more specific with materials that we just, you know, we pick, whether it's the roofing or the siding, or, you know, we decide that we're gonna pay this much and not this much, you know, that'll be more dialed in, so they should have a more accurate number.
Dave's first.
Question, I know that at least a lot of those firms are really solid. One of your questions about can they fit their schedule?
So I have a timeline. Yep, they had to provide a timeline of how they could do this. And there was some of the questions, you know, even in the interview, they provided a timeline, but they also had to explain to me like how they could make it work, because I know there's material shortages and everything else. And some of the things are that they would do, pretty much most of them answered it the same way, would be you would design maybe the building, get that approval from the county and the town, and that building would start getting manufactured as the rest of the engineering is happening. You know, so maybe right off the get-go, one of the first things, you know, they have these meetings and say, okay, we're happy with this building. This is the building they want. They'll start engineering that right off the get-go, so they can, you know, even separate it out so that building can go out to bid for the building. Because right now it's suggested by the original study and us to have a manufactured type building, you know, that comes already, you're assembling on site. So a steel building, and they would have to start manufacturing that as soon as possible to even try to hit our timeline, which would be fall of 2023.
So I have Matt first, then Daryl, then Dana.
So if this committee is gonna make a decision to say, let's go with one of the contractors today, one of the engineers today, right?
Yes.
Don't we need to have the MOU with Fort Ann in place now? so that when the first bill comes in, we know how to split it.
So,
So that needs to be contingent upon that MOU getting.
okay, so yeah, so in my notes, I said award, the proposal based on a resolution from the town of Fort Ann, also entering the, agreement MOA signed by the town. So today we could just say, we're good if, I don't know how you write it, for a resolution, continuing pending approval of the town of Fort Ann and a signed MOA before we can, and all that falls in place,
Okay,
hopefully before.
we have a
the full board
sequence,
meeting.
we have a sequence that's gonna
Yes.
solve it. Okay, second question I have is, we're gonna be borrowing, we're gonna be joint borrowing, what about ARPA money, what about money in the capital plan? I thought we were gonna try to pay cash for this.
We were going to try. We put aside $5 million to do both barns.
Right?
And if that estimate that he got is anywhere near, we're shy.
We're shy for both barns, but we may better do one barn.
Yes, sir.
But if we can do one barn, why wouldn't we borrow for the second barn if we can pay cash for this barn?
Which might be a path that we choose.
Okay, so
Fort Ann will have to borrow.
right, so and if they do borrow, they'll borrow separately, that's what we borrow.
No,
They can get a better rate with us, so that partnership will benefit
Right,
the Fort Ann residents.
even if we don't borrow, they just borrow under our number.
So we may not be borrowing any of it, but we're gonna borrow what they need.
We're gonna
through
have to
us.
borrow something,
Okay,
unless we completely suck up the rest of the ARP money, which I don't think is gonna happen.
now how married will we be with Fort Ann? Will they be paying the county or will they be paying the bank?
They'll be paying the county. The debt service will be the
We're
county.
married.
That's not what the lady said. The lady told us.
If I
that
borrow
they would
money,
be billed-
I make the
right.
payments.
They said they would be billed separately, is what she told us when we were in your meeting.
That's,
But that's what she told us. She said that they would write them their whole form and they would have to pay directly. I thought that's what she told us, but I could be wrong. Maybe she just bills them directly and it pays you. That could be.
if this goes through the process, at some point, there'll be a decision made on, after the bids come back from the contractors, what we're gonna do with the financing, right?
the borrowing piece will be separate from this.
So it may be 2 months from now, it may be 9 months from now, but it'll come back to us for discussion, right? You're not getting our blessing right now. This will come back.
No, because there will be a series of tick marks when it comes to the borrow. There will be a seeker, there'll be a borrowing resolution, there'll be an MOA resolution. There'll be other steps for the financing piece. Today would just be the engineering and the cooperative agreement for the engineering.
So I'll make sure the devil's in the details.
Yes, no,
If there are assumptions made with two parties, we should bet them out.
Well, right, and you're right, because this is.
all of the normal borrowing steps would still have to happen.
This is a big enough, pot of money that you are kind of going down that road. I mean, you can pull them. But both entities are spending enough money at this point, you might not need the agreement for him yet, but you're gonna need,
Is,
yeah, and more for just the engineering. I mean, we're gonna, in that MOA, we're gonna want Fort Ann to commit to, building the building. I mean, at that point, because if they pull out after we just pay it all, that's a waste of our money too, because engineering's changing. We can't just go back because it's a combined building. We can't just say, once this engineering's done, if they were to say, we don't want to build anymore, we're stuck with $470,000 worth of engineering that's no good anymore. And no property to put it on. So you do need the commitment at this point to go forward with it.
I guess my question is, there's a lot of details that's gonna go into the
Sure.
MOA. It's not gonna be just 60-40. There's a lot of other stuff.
Well,
It's
basically,
It's their property, right? So that's an issue. Roger's gonna negotiate that for us. Who's his fallback here for him to come back and say,
So-
we're asking for this, can I put that in
So the
there?
plan right now is to go with Sam to the town of Fort Ann meeting. His board will discuss a possible draft of an MOA,
Okay.
whatever. They're gonna come back, at that board meeting, hopefully Sam will get out of his board, okay, we own the property. This is what we want for the property, in lieu of, or however you're gonna work that out. I think you let them do that part first because they own the property. And then hopefully we'll have that back again, for, even a finance discussion and then, or whatever, to write up a, better
I guess
contract.
that's my question is, when Roger comes back with something as a draft Who does he go to?
Well,
I won't say this committee.
I would say this committee, right?
Go around, finance,
Finance.
working group?
Oh, yeah, finance would work
Finance,
because
okay.
it's really a money thing, right? No, I agree with that. I think that was actually my plan anyway, finance and then full board, so. But it's gotta fall in place, right? We just gotta at least have a draft and then go to Fort Ann. And Fort Ann's, attorney can look it over. His town board can say, yep, we're on board. We're full on board. They'll sign it, bring it back and then we go to finance.
Dana. You'll be after Dana, okay, Sue?
Thanks, I'm gonna mute myself.
Huh?
I'll talk long.
Mhm.
Are we ignoring the 500-pound gorilla in the room about the lack of supplies and the cost of construction, or is nothing really going to be constructed for a couple years and maybe inflation will correct itself? Are we married to this regardless of cost?
That's not for me to answer. I mean, that's for the board. This is the route we're going and I'm putting it out there. Yeah, sure. Construction, costs are high right now. There is no guarantee they're ever going to go down. It doesn't.
When do you think construction costs will start being incurred?
I would say 2023.
The bids will come back probably next.
Yeah, I mean, the
Next February.
timeline on this is the engineering would start in July of 2022. Skip forward, completion of the project would be 2023. Like,
Hope to go on next winter.
what's that?
Bids will go on next winter.
Yes.
And come back.
So you would have, if you follow about
the
the,
start of construction season in the spring.
yes.
So it's a year.
Who knows?
A year.
Who knows?
Now, you're 100% right with materials. I mean, I asked them to do their best to, plan for that. I don't want to be stuck in August and say, hey, we can't get 2 pieces of tin, you can't move in, like have a plan, give us, solid dates. And that's part of the engineering, how we wrote the RFP is for that kind of detail. Now, everybody knows, I'll do my best to hold them to it, but you can't get a supply, you can't get a supply, but there's avenues for them to tell us that so we can.
Sue?
plan for it.
Cassie, do we have an agreement with the town of Fort Ann to go from start like pre-engineering to occupancy? And is Washington County going to be that lead agent in that contract?
That's one of the discussions we're talking about, is signing the MOA and who's going to be doing the back and forth for that.
The plan right now is that the county would be the lead agency.
Yeah. And so that would actually get us from one level to another level without having this discussion every single time.
Daryl?
Two things. Thank you, Madam Chair. Number one, I'd like to make a motion to accept Matt's recommendation for the proposal for engineering services. That's my first point. My second point, Matt, it'd be helpful if, I know it'll take a little bit of time, but a simple flow chart of process so that everybody can be looking at it and have the same understanding of what the process is. Thank you.
Do I have a second for Daryl's motion? Dave? Discussion, Dana?
Daryl, but I see a technical problem with that. If we would authorize Matt to award this bid, we're going to spend money, but we don't really know what the percentage between Fort Ann and the county is. We kind of need to know that before we start encumbering money, right?
The recommendation and language in the contract, upon your approval, we don't have it here for your approval, would be 60-40. We're taking the recommendations, and any soft costs that are incurred by one party or the other are expected to be paid by that party. So any interior build out that's Fort Ann specific would be labeled in the engineering as Fort Ann specific, and that cost would be broke out in the construction as an alternate. So these alternates would be, listed. Counties, here's alternates, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 4 of these alternates are, let's just say 5 of them are for Washington County purposes only. 5 of them are for the town of Fort Ann. Those would split out, but the base cost of everything is still 40-60 split. And we're basing this off from the agreement. It's the same agreement that we signed with the town of Putnam to work when we did that. Now, we weren't the lead agency, but we're basing the contract off what worked for that, and it seemed to work well. As far as, the attorney details and stuff like that, that'll be up to Roger, but
Your
I
bid
think
is
my
only for 30
recommendation,
days, right? I'm still talking.
my recommendation is
Their bid is still only for 30 days. You have to accept by 30 days.
this one.
All of those, yes.
I'll have to look at the exact dates, but I don't have the exact dates in 30 days, but, well, you could be wrong. I mean, it could be. We need to keep a timeline or a time chart. We really need to, though.
Right, but can you do that? The agreement, ironclad was gonna be 60-40 before the expiration of their proposal.
I believe the
Well,
state
it's only
was
30
for
days.
pending on approval of.
I guess I should have had a flow chart. It got a little bit jabbed in my flow charts, but basically the town of Fort Ann, I mean, it doesn't matter where it goes for, we can suggest 60-40 and they can agree to 60-40. It's here. If you agree to 60-40, that's my recommendation. That was in the engineering's and the, in the study was 60-40. I don't see where it's changing. It's a pretty even split when it's just the building. The soft costs are where it may change, but the building itself is this many square feet. And it's this many bays that are all the same exact size. There's 11 bays. And there's 6 that are Fort Ann's bays. There's 4 that are Washington County's and 1 that's a combined bay. So it's, it's a 50-50 bay. So a 60-40 split, there's really no other technical way to break that down.
Matt, we have a meeting scheduled with the town of Fort Ann in the next 2 weeks, I believe, right? The chairman was gonna set up
He's
something.
working on through that right now.
Right, so then
We're
after
trying,
we have that meeting with the town of Fort Ann and we get their commitment, then we can go forward
Well,
for board approval to.
ideally,
accept
some of this
to
stuff
work
would be
them.
worked out today before we went there, so he could present it to, hey,
So you're looking for committee approval as far as the 60-40 split so that the MOA can be drafted.
yes. And that's a different motion than what Darrell has right now to accept this, but I guess whatever order you want to do that in.
Because you don't want to award the bid yet until we know that the town of Fort Ann is committed.
But somebody has
Yeah,
to
sure.
go first. Somebody
Right.
has to make the decision first. Matt's first, then Brian.
So, hey, let's stop bid and say proposal.
Yes.
Darrell, is your motion sort of contingent upon the acceptance by Fort Ann and the MOA being signed? Then it's sort of a, let's go, but he can give them a heads up saying, you're the guy we're gonna go with. We just gotta check
Yeah, I
out a
think-
couple things. If that's the assumption, then I'm gonna definitely support that.
Yeah, that's the assumption because
Okay.
the outcome of the MOA is almost irrelevant to the engineering service being provided. It's independent. That's my opinion.
So we
I
pass
agreed,
this-
and I agree. I was under the assumption it was 60-40 because we had talked about this for some time ago. Like I said, build it and they will come. I don't see Fort Ann backing out on this. And a 60-40 is a more than generous split on this.
We pass this motion, you're gonna call the guys and say, yeah, we got the thumbs up from Washington County. You guys are gonna wrap up the Fort Ann stuff with Roger in the next 30 days. They're gonna get started.
No, they won't get started.
Well, I mean, they're gonna get on their schedule. They're not gonna do anything.
You were recommended.
You were recommended.
We still have to.
Once we wrap this stuff out, we're.
I'm very careful until you get both towns,
Then I'll support what Darrell did.
Yes. And basically it's an award proposal based on a resolution from the town of Fort Ann to enter into, the MOA agreement, And if you want to talk about the MOA agreement separate,
Nope.
That's it.
Okay, so previously we had a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any more discussion on this vote before we make the vote, or is it discussion on something else?
It's all involved.
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, it was mentioned earlier, and I just want to make sure we put it out there that we don't want any conflicts. Sam has no choice but to represent the town of Fort Ann, so we have to make sure that Bob really represents the county of Washington, because it could just look pretty improper if the same person signs both. So just want to make sure we leave that out there. It's well informed and in the meeting, so people know.
Yeah, Al said that.
Yeah, I know. I just want to leave
Sam?
that out there and
Yeah.
stress
No,
that.
I agree. That should be, the vice chair should, because my town is directly involved in this, the vice chair should sign all the documents involved with this. And, 40, and I looked at the 60-40, that's what we were anticipating this was going to be because of conversation that we had done. That's what we based our first decision on. But if that alters some, we understand that as well. But when it comes to the actual signing of documents, I believe that the vice chair should do that. So it takes away any issue that might be brought up by any member of the public or whatever the case may be. So I'm completely comfortable with that.
Sue still has a green sign in there. I'll take care of it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Dana?
Have we ever discussed the lease agreement? Because it's gonna be Fordham property, we're gonna be located there. We built our side of it, but it's still on Fordham land. Have we ever discussed lease?
They brought it up a
Every
few
year?
minutes ago and said
So
the discussion is.
there has been discussions. This is part of, basically when we go to Sam's meeting, he's gonna have to say, okay, we have this many acres, this is what it's worth and how we're, they're gonna give us, basically what they want, and we have to either agree or negotiate at that point. It's coming soon.
Well, that's gotta come sooner than when we start building stuff, if we only lease it for 1 year.
It's gotta be in the MOA.
We're talking about in the next month.
Gerald?
Yeah, I'd recommend don't get hung up on a lease. I wouldn't make that a do or die thing. This is a shared service. Let the town continue to own,
The bottom is like 100-year type thing.
Yeah. Well, there's no money to it. It's the county actually, I submit all the expenses associated with maintaining the building and electricity and all the services for the building. And the county pays that portion that we agreed upon.
Yes, in the MOA that we started drafting that worked on Putnam, it does spell that out, that basically we're the lead agency on the build of the project. They're the lead agency on the building. So like the maintenance of it, as far as the electric bill goes to them, they submit a bill to us, we pay them, something to that effect.
And Deb's team,
it'll-
Deb's team turns that right around, within a week or so of me submitting the documents. It just comes right back, and it's more than the benefit. Yeah, the benefit the town gets from having the combined materials and the effort associated with the barn, it more than pays for itself.
All right, do we need a separate resolution, Debbie, for the MOA, or was that rolled into that one?
I had the MOA in there.
Okay. I thought I finally got added in there, but I'm making sure.
Based on the MOA that,
Yep. Just double checking while we're all still sitting in the room. Basically.
Yeah, and just a point of clarity, it goes for the life of the building, the if you will. So whenever that time horizon is, Matt, that you have for the building, then everything needs to get relooked.
Got it. So then the update on the Middle Falls DPW barn is the survey of the property that we were trying to acquire was done this week. Tonight is planning board meeting. I'll be at to submit that. They will, then I think the step is they put it out for public hearing, and then next month we get the final approval. Everything I submitted, everything the last month's meeting, they went over it all. They did everything they need to do. So it seems like it's pretty cut and dry.
I missed a while there, so did the landowner and you reach an agreement?
Yes, we did at the last government ops. We are waiting for the contract to be completed, I guess, for that. That's one part we're waiting on, is the contract.
You said tonight's
That's
planning board,
in tonight's planning board, fourth Tuesday of this.
grievance planning board and the court. That's gonna be a,
Good thing you built that new building.
yeah.
So I should bring up Pat for
One
my
of them
seat.
might have to meet in the parking lot.
We got the same thing and we don't have the building.
Right.
You have that new salt shed.
That whole,
Go ahead, Matt.
I think that's about it. That's it for middle fall. So by next month, we'll have maybe a little more. Hopefully we'll have a signed agreement. I guess the other thing is we are moving forward with the preliminary design that we had hired out when we had originally hired Emmy. It was for both buildings. I put them on hold until we had the right location. I have asked them to start moving forward with that now and doing their thing for that. And I think the last thing I got today is public defenders. They have a source of funding also, ILS through the state, that can either remodel, they can use it for remodel, they can use it for space, they can use it for leasing space, this and that. So in discussions, and his department has grown, as you all know, tenfold in the last 3-4 years. And our lack of space in this building, we've been looking for commercial office space, you know, around town, close to here, that might fit a department like that with the reasoning of we have ILS funding for this department. So that would pay for a lease. So if somebody was gonna pay for their space, why wouldn't we let somebody pay for them and have an open up space in this building? So I have found some space up the street, 346 Main Street. In talks with Mike and Melissa, you know, as we've been working on this for probably a couple of months of trying to find them space, you know. He believes that he could use that office space up there for 6 lawyers and a secretary. And in my opinion, I think it's a slam dunk if we're paying. If somebody else is footing the bill for a lease, for them to move out of this building when we're short space as it is, why wouldn't we consider, you know, doing that? So right now, I don't have any negotiated numbers. Just walked the space with Mike and Melissa and Terry yesterday to get, you know, what it would cost for IT set up, what it would cost for buildings and grounds, what the lease would cost, what kind of, you know, terms to come with a number. But what I'd like now is a little bit of reassurance that from you guys that it's not like a, you know, we're not just going out on a limb if you don't think it's a good idea.
Go ahead, Matt.
Sorry, the whole department?
6 lawyers and an attorney.
Is that the whole department?
No.
Part of it.
That's right. The
Part of it
administration.
here, part would be someplace else. Part,
So the administration part for now.
okay.
If something else opened up where there was a bigger space in the future.
Yeah.
And they were still paying for it, funding was still paying for it. Sure, I would consider the whole department.
Okay.
They do need like a little satellite.
What would go into the space that you're freeing up here that you're so desperate for?
Well, in the larger scheme of things, we've had Terry, who's bringing on another employee with IT, and they're much more active with than when I first started with moving computers in and out. They have staging, you know, where they got to stage computers, and then when one comes back, they have to erase the hard drive before it can go to auction, you know. So basically, there's a whole process of in and out, you know, printers, anything electronic that they're really looking for some space. Now, that's one thing is that's just kind of
Okay.
acute space crunch. One of the bigger pictures is DSS is very short space. You know, and we're adding into DSS more and more. I mean, we've got people working in cages and you know, not literally cages. What we're filing, we talk about their file cages, you know, that we try to move it and you get desks in there, but you know, in closet size spaces. That's a grand scheme. This office isn't gonna fix.
The DSS.
This isn't gonna fix the DSS issue, but in a bigger picture, you know, down the road, a wing would fix, you would help fix a
Okay, so third
DSS.
question is, what about Burgoyne? And can we pay ourselves with ILS money to move into Burgoyne? Take that
So,
money.
Burgoyne, is gonna be filled up with public health.
Does it take that whole north wing?
Yes. Between public health and WIC, which is the two buildings. That staff will pretty much, once, yeah, I mean,
And then
the
what do we do with
process.
the spot, what do we do with the spot that public health is now?
Well, we have the.
That's mold infested now, still there.
I know, we're still upstairs.
We have the subcommittee that's been working on that. We don't have a full report for that yet.
Okay.
You know, we don't have a full report for that yet, you know, but I hope, you know, in the next couple of months, you'll see a bigger, because you can keep going, what are we gonna do with this building, then we're gonna do this, what are you gonna do with pig, right? We can keep
You
doing
can
that.
do, with
You
five people,
never
you
gonna
can do
tear
it.
it down. There's no space. You tell me we're not gonna tear it down to this customer, saying,
This to
well,
me-
what are we gonna do with it?
Right, this to me is probably a much smaller decision, you know, with public. For one, we're not funding it. So whatever space we have in this building, that, you know, somebody else is paying for them to leave, is a benefit. No matter what we do with it, it's a benefit to us. And an agreement could also be contingent on state money, you know, going away. Like, hey, the lease is up, if state money goes away,
Then,
you know,
yeah, we go back
they're promising.
to someplace we don't have.
Perfect.
Dana Hogan's first, then Dan.
Matt, I wanted to add for everybody, I want all you all to know, 346 Main is actually owned by my brother. I want everybody to be aware of that. I'm staying, waiting all this. I unlocked the building yesterday for everybody, but as far as I'm getting involved.
This funding that you said that's available, what's the term of it? I mean, are we guaranteed 3 years of it?
I'm guaranteed 3, right? So the contract is 3.
3-year contract,
Contract is
right.
currently 3.
And we keep asking them, and they said the funding is gonna be on hold.
They said it will be included in the state budget going forward. Did ask that.
I've heard that about chips and paving New York and everything.
I know, we've heard the same thing, and I mean, I can't speak for the owner, but if we were to negotiate a lease agreement, we would probably, you know, base it off funding. And I asked the same question, but to me, a lease isn't a bad way to go anyways. I mean, we keep owning things, but a building like that, when you don't have to do the actual maintenance, the snow, you know, all that sort of stuff, there's value to that too.
Like Lauderdale.
Gerald?
Matt, does this building kind of fit into the swing space that we might need when you get to the pieces of your master plan for the complex? Would that benefit?
I mean, I don't want to go into a master plan or anything to that effect right now, but it boils back down to what I just said, that DSS, it would take a wing of a building to probably fit what growth they've had, you know, correctly. This is like one step in that direction, you know, if you were just to say building A, you know, and I don't want to bring all this up, but if you were to say building a second floor and 10 years down the road or 7 years down the road, we had a new DPW building somewhere with the DPW offices out of it. And, you know, this space opened up and personnel moved, all of a sudden you'd have a wing of a building that might help what DSS needs, you know, or probably would help. I don't want to go into it's a lot of steps down the road, and I don't want to really go down those steps of that road yet without it, but it has been thought out as to how it could help us.
No, yeah, I don't want you to go down the steps. I'm just asking
Yeah.
generally if it fits in.
It's tricky.
Yeah, Brian and then Melissa.
Well, maybe take Melissa first, because she raised her hand to the question.
You were so upset, I hadn't called on you yet, so. Go ahead, Melissa.
The offices that the public defenders are in right now, we had talked extensively about doing the upgrade in the old, I don't know the number, is it 268, the old personnel office, the one with the counter?
At the top of the ramp.
We had talked about doing that, and you even, I think, started putting numbers together. It just seemed like there was a huge construction that would be involved in that, because he's talking about separate offices, because right now it's just a big open room with just a couple little offices on each side. Looking at that space yesterday, I think it fills an immediate need for I mean, it's just ideal office space, I think, for that department. That department is constantly here and out of here with court going in and out. It would give us some more parking spaces out near DMV if they weren't there. After seeing the space, I think it is probably a good idea for now. I wasn't so, I guess, open to it at the beginning, thinking that we had the space, but we have such a problem here with space and departments growing, and I don't know how else we can free up some space other than to get somebody out without building a new building. I don't know.
Brian,
So anyway, with the ILS money, remember that the way that was signed was if that money goes away, we can also cut lawyers. So we do have that ability. My other question was if we were gonna move WIC also, will that take the rest of the attorney out? Will that take public defenders totally away? The other annex building,
Oh, you mean out of, Annex 2?
out of this building, yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, yeah.
I mean, that would create room for all of them outside of this building.
His lawyers that aren't necessarily, doing any county business, like he's doing county business at the same time as being, administrating his staff. They're gonna stay here. These are just the attorneys that are working with the clients, that are moving up there in one secretary.
But with what's left, would that
What's left?
fit in the
Oh,
second?
yeah, they would fit in a much smaller spot.
So I mean, and that would free up that whole level at that point.
There's that option, right, of the WIC building.
It just gives you another option.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Or there's also office space next to the space we looked at yesterday, which if that ever would become vacant, that might be a possibility too. And put all the public defenders there in that one
That'd be
building.
nice. Make it a lot more convenient for an office party.
What would be the downfall of moving? I mean, I just want to know, what would be the downfall of moving them offsite? And I guess I kind of know, like, hey, if say funding dried up, but at the same time, like Brian just said, if that funding dries up, then we don't have to have as many people for the public defender either. So what would be the downfall of having somebody on a site away from here?
Dave,
So the only downfall I was thinking about was how much support do they require from the staff staying here? I mean, the property is 2 miles away. If they need to go back and forth with support, what impact does that have? Or just.
I left that up to Mike and how that would.
In
how
talking
he
to
would
Mike
affect us as a
yesterday,
department,
yeah,
right?
he said it would not be a hurdle at all because they're constantly in and out with court, that he didn't see it being a problem at all.
Do we have any carpools that would have to, carpool cars that would end up parked up there overnight or anything?
I believe they,
I
don't
would-
they have all their, do they have a county vehicle? Public defenders, I thought
I think they have
ours.
one emergency one or two.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
they
one or
usually
two.
drive their own vehicles.
But yeah, they drive their own vehicles to work. But they do have a carpool car for it to be parked there overnight. Maybe depends on maybe who's on call or whatever, or something to that effect. But as far as this, I don't. see that.
This has to do with money, so we just be moving it to finance.
We don't need, we don't.
I don't have numbers yet. This is a general discussion to see if you wanted to shoot that whole idea down. I just want to, pursue it any farther. If it seems like a good idea to this committee, then I'll start with the, landowner and I'll start, hey, how much is the lease? And, I'll get some sort of agreement that we can discuss and then pull the trigger, yes or no.
there's anybody against the idea?
I'm not against the idea, I'm not sure I'm for it yet, though. I like to keep everybody on campus if we can, we start putting everybody all over the place, it just seems like everything's a moving part, every department's a moving part. Every year,
We're
we're all
already
over the
moving.
place.
Well,
We don't have a master plan,
They
really.
were never here before.
Yeah, but they were never 12 people before either.
No, but we never see them now.
And that's part of the problem, there's
Seems
12
like all
people
the
and it takes
See,
three
Mike
offices.
will still be here. That's what I mean. I couldn't even tell you who the public defenders are. That's how much I see. I mean,
Mike and his administration staff, other than one secretary, would be there, would still be here. This would be solar center point for,
I don't think
clients.
we'll see a difference that way.
So the committee's in support of letting Matt take the next step and get the next level of information to bring it back to us.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Matt's issue, but nobody's.
I mean, if you got questions, show them up. I can tell you got questions. I mean, I want to know them now so I can.
There was no
I
silent
don't
no, so I
run
guess.
and do all this work without, you know. If there's a question, I mean, my phone's.
And then you bring it back here with the numbers before the numbers get moved to finance. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I got it.
Hey, Matt,
Not gonna
Matt,
go
I
waste.
have one question.
Go ahead, Daryl.
Yeah, Matt, are you comfortable the building meets the basic requirements for public access and all the safety pieces
Yes.
associated with that? Okay, good. As
Yes,
long
and
as
anything that needs to be upgraded would be, I mean, given an estimate, right, BILS would upgrade the building to suit it. It's pretty close. I mean, sure, you have to break it up a little different inside, do a little bit of stuff, but, and that's all part of this ILS contract.
okay, thank you.
All right, I guess that gives you your direction.
Wasn't wholeheartedly I was hoping for, but, you know.
There was a wishy-washy and.
Well, you know, I have to, right, I mean, I'm out there, you know, with the county's name on, so I like to have the support because for a month I'm gonna work, not only my time, I'm gonna waste somebody else's time. And if there's a problem with it, now would be the time.
Seems like a good enough idea to continue to
So
pursue
when
to
you
the
were
next
about
step.
that, I just wanted you to update on the law center roof because we moved money from into the capital plan. Just tell them why that it's raised its level.
The law center roof, we're we're getting engineered right now, so it hasn't gone out to bid or anything like that, but we did move 2 million from the fund balance into the capital plan under the original estimate of the roof being $2 million to repair. We don't know yet. As soon as it's engineered. Replace, I'm sorry. You know, I mean, we've talked about that. That's on, you know, been on the capital plan for a while. I would expect probably the engineering to be done within the next month or two. And I would say next month. And then it'll be here again before we go out to bid for it.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, Board of Elections. You guys have been waiting patiently. Mostly because you're muted, so we think you're patient.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. As you know, there's been quite a few changes with elections. And let me start off saying that we will have a primary in June and we will have a primary in August. The reason being is after the first districts were redrawn, there was some objections and went to court and forced a second rewriting of the New York State Senate and the first congressional and the congressional districts in New York. The assembly stayed the same. And so let me tell you about June. There's a handful of towns that have elections in November for local candidates, but there's no primary. There's no elections on the county level. And when we get to the assembly districts, there's no primaries in the assembly districts either. But I can show you, I don't know if you can see this, the 107th right here is now including Easton, Cambridge, and White Creek and goes south, okay? And then in the 113th, it is only the towns of Greenwich, Fort Edward, and the village of Hudson Falls. And then the rest of the 114th all goes north with the district that we all used to be in, or most of us were in. But there's no primaries in any of those. The 107th, I'll tell you, it's got complicated because the guy who's down there, Jake Ashby, is now going to run for the New York State's new Senate district down there. So that's wide open with new petitions. The 113th is an election between a Republican and a Democrat. And the 114th is Matt Simpson's running unopposed. So what do we have in June? We have the election for governor and lieutenant governor. The Democrats will have a primary for governor and lieutenant governor. And Republicans will have 4 candidates for governor. So that's going to be the countywide primary, June 28th. When they sued about the congressional district and the Senate districts, they were redrawn according to a judge's instructions. And the congressional district got expanded, and it's larger than it was, but it didn't affect Washington County. We're still in the 21st congressional district. But now it expands all the way from Canada down into Schoharie County, up around Albany and down to Washington County and down into Rensselaer County. There will be a Democrat primary in August for that seat. There will not be a Republican one. Then it gets interesting. We are now in this new Senate district because they split Washington County. Whitehall, Fort Anne, Kingsbury, Dresden, and Putnam now remain in the northern part of the state. The 45th is now represented by Dan Steck. The rest of the county is going south into a new district that's been created called the 43rd. That's where Jake Ashby is going to run. He was the 107th assembly person. And there's a gentleman from Albany, this district, Southern Washington County, Rensselaer County, and the city of Albany only. And there's I think the county sheriff or the city sheriff in Albany is going to run. Yeah. So right now we do have a countywide primary for Congress, Democrat, in August. This is
August 23rd.
Yep. And August 23rd. This is unscheduled. And Jeff's going to run through some numbers for you on the cost. We do not have a budget for this.
So like we said, this was, when we did our budget, we did for the normal primary and general village. So this primary was, unexpected. So when this, now this new primary popped up on us, so of course we was not in our budget. So just as far as earnings wise, now we're looking at another whole election, another primary. So inspector earnings alone, of course, the primary is another 16-hour day, 5:30 to 9:30. We use approximately 140 inspectors. So, we're looking at earnings to pay out that day for primary around $32,000 for inspectors. Then, of course, it's another early voting, 9 days of early voting. So approximately $2,200 to cover early voting for inspector earnings. Now we got to throw technicians for test decking and other expenses, couriers. So approximately another $3,000 for techs. And then now we have the truck rental again for the 2 trucks with the lift gates, the fuel costs, the drivers for the trucks for, another election. You're looking at around $2,500. These are all approximate costs. So, right there, you're looking at $39,700, and that's just for those few things. Then you're looking at, Mindy and Ashley, some overtime. We still got to figure that, throw that in. And then also you'll see that we put down, there's a possible mandated by the state, the inspector pay going up for inspectors on election day, paying them $300 a day for working election. And if that's the case, that inspector pay just went from $32,000 to $42,000 for the primary. So like I say, it just throws that added expense for the primary into the loop.
That $300 is not law yet. It's still pending in committee, but they're pushing it.
But that's, that the 32,000 is at the rate now, that 1414. So we just wanted to, give you a heads up on that. We're hoping, that somehow we get some kind of, some relief, we don't know yet. We hope we get something. Then also, if you see, the postage is increased, it's gonna increase because as of July 1st, anyone that, requests an absentee ballot application, we have to give a postage paid return envelope. And for every absentee ballot that we send out, we have to give a postage paid return. But that, we know that we'll have, they're gonna give reimbursement for that. So as of after July 1st, we're just gonna have to keep our receipts and keep track of that postage for the absentee apps and the absentee ballots. So we do know that's a definite, they're gonna help with that postage cost increase.
Yeah, one of the things that we have saved on for this is that we have plenty of ballot paper, plenty of envelopes. We got on that early because there's a shortage of both, and we've been well supplied in those areas. So that will not be an additional cost.
But just looking at that, we were discussing about the postage for absentees right now between our PERNs, military, federal, and our UCAVA. We have like 765 absentees right now with those categories. And that's, not including our civilians. Let's see, hit everything pretty much. But that's, like I say, that's just kind of giving you a heads up on that new primary that, like I said, that we didn't plan on.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thank you very much. The 107th district, the petitioning, when does that end? And is that, if they do have a primary for that, will that primary be in August?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that won't affect any of these. That'll flow right into these costs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the reason. One of the things, when they redid the districts, they didn't have enough time to do the petitions before the June primary for the new places, for the new lines. And so that's why the August ends up out there. It was done by a judge, of course.
But that'll just be Senate and
Just Senate and congressional, that's it.
Just the federal ballot.
Oh, just the federal. So on the state assembly 107th, do we know when they have to be done petitioning for that?
Petitions, we have a temporary political calendar. We don't have the official one yet. Let me pull up. Yeah, first day to sign, it was the 21st of May, and they have to be filed. Last day, the filing period is June 8th to June 10th.
Okay. And then if there's a primary as a result of that,
It'll be in August.
it will be in August. Okay.
Yep.
I think.
Now, there's still 2 lawsuits out there. I know of. League of Women Voters has got one out there trying to combine the 2. It's pretty late to do that. We've already mailed out absentee and military ballots for June.
Because they had to go out, they had, buy.
And then there was another one to redistrict the assemblies. Out of the 3, 2 of those lawsuits are dead. Haven't heard on the 3rd one, but this is pretty much it. I don't expect any changes on this.
But I mean, by the time we get through this election, could, depending on that, if they do raise that, the inspectors, $300 a day, that's just between the 14 rate and the 300, there's a $10,000 difference right there just for election day. So, I mean, we could be looking at a $45,000 primary, cost for total cost.
So we know we're going to get some for the postage. We're hopeful, and there's some bills out there for additional funds on the August election, August primary. So we're looking for some help. We don't have this in our budget to pay for this.
But we just wanted to give you a heads up.
Go ahead,
All right, I was trying to do the math in my head here and I'm not making out very well, but you might have just answered it. What do you think the total cost in your best guess is going to be for this August primary?
45,000.
I'm saying, I'm thinking 40, it could be around 45.
altogether.
I mean, it all depends if they push that, you know, like I say, that $300, if they go to that rate, that's right there's a $10,000 difference right there.
Brian?
So did the League of Women Voters get thrown out in their lawsuit to move them all together, or?
Oh, it's not gonna affect, we're still gonna have a primary in August, is that what you mean? Or?
Well, I thought they were trying to move them together.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're trying to move it together, but you know,
I don't think, well, we don't know.
we don't know.
I don't think it's gonna happen, but.
Well, I hope it's gonna happen.
Right, yeah, if it happens.
But that's every county in the state, and women are
Be
supposed
everybody.
to hooked up to right now. What's wrong?
Yeah, if
with
it happened, then that's good. We're back to just the
Just
regular scheduled 2 elections.
Yeah.
With those changes, is Mr. Ashby no longer eligible to run the 107th? Is his district disappearing? He's gonna run from the 43rd Senate. Does he have to resign his seat to run in the primary, or only if he wins the primary, or only if he wins the election?
Well, that's an interesting question. You can't run for 2 offices at the same time.
Is he on an assembly? Is he running for an assembly seat also? Is it up this fall?
He is running right now. He's got petitions in to run for the 107th. But
Okay, so
can't
if he
run
decides to run for the 43rd, then he has to drop out of the 107th?
That's what we assume, yes.
Well, but the petitions will be filed in June for the 107th, but he won't know until August if he's the primary opponent or not.
Right.
So if he loses the primary, can he still keep his Senate or Assembly hopes alive?
You are asking a really good question. I don't know the answer to.
Jimmy?
So what I understand is that Jake currently has 3 vacancy committees that have announced, I'm sorry. Never mind. I've got to agree my notes here. Never mind. I'll come back to you if I find it.
Okay.
Anybody else have any more questions?
I think it was already half answered, but it's too early to know if there will be a primary of any sort for the 43rd Senate.
No, there will be. Mr. Apple.
Not yet. I only know about 2 people running for the 43rd, and they're.
Well, there's 2 Democrats running for the 43rd.
So there would be a primary.
Yeah.
Both Republican and Democrat
43rd.
primary for the 43rd.
43rd.
I think Jake's got the candidacy for the Republicans.
Yeah.
And there's 2 Democrats, and there's 2 Democrats that are running.
There's a young lady who had run before against him that's running too.
Yeah.
In the 107th or the 43rd?
43rd.
I thought Mr. Apple's running in the 43rd.
He is, and then also the woman from Troy is running in the 43rd.
Democrat.
Okay, as a Democrat in the general, not the primary.
In the primary, yes.
In the primary.
Democrats. And 2 Republicans. 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans?
No.
One Republican.
2 Dems, 1 Repo.
Yep.
What about Mr. Apple?
He's a Democrat.
He's a Democrat, okay.
So basically,
So
to
right
summarize this
now,
presentation, they need money. So where are we gonna find them $45,000?
we're going to have a primary in August.
You got no choice, you're gonna find it. I mean, it's gonna
Yeah,
come up.
finance.
The election, so.
Al's report was all roses. It's too early to do it.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
No amendments now, but we'll just now thank you for the heads up, and we'll have to find the money when the time gets closer and we have better.
Sounds like a
figures.
plan.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you
Next
so
up.
much.
Is that it? Oh.
We're good. Any other questions?
You guys thought you were getting off in an off year, huh?
Yeah.
What are those dates again? June 28th and August 23rd?
Yeah, and you know, June 28th is like graduation week. Everybody's busy, and then August is fair week.
Big attorney then.
You know who's busy fair week? All our inspectors, so.
Dan?
I have just one quick question. I don't want to drag this out. Next year is town and county elections. When is the primary? When is the primary for that?
June, the fourth Tuesday of June.
June
Fourth
4th.
Tuesday after.
Fourth Tuesday.
Fourth Tuesday in June.
Yes, sir.
Okay, interesting.
Man, you're planning ahead.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
always-
it's not that.
It's always after the first one.
It was September, then it was June. I mean.
Same night as your planning board next week.
Any other questions for Board of Election?
No.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Make sure there's space, that there's space there.
You know, town primary.
Okay. Melissa. Debbie, I mean, you guys doing this? No?
So
It is not my fault that I keep holding the record for longest meetings. Go ahead.
Well, we have the issue of video conferencing and the use of video conferencing that Roger discussed recently. The governor's executive order expires June 14th. So the question, I guess the first question that we have to answer is whether or not there's interest in allowing video conferencing for meetings. And again, remembering that it's only in extraordinary circumstances that the video conferencing can be used. So that, I guess, is the first question, and if so, then we have to.
I think, well, I don't understand that.
Is there a consensus that we would consider, because if we don't consider, we're done.
Using video conferencing.
Yeah, can we consider that first?
For extraordinary circumstances.
Yes.
We already. That's all gonna be
That's
fine.
not the only reason.
Well, that's the law. The law is extraordinary circumstances. That's the only time you can
No.
video conference.
That's not the only time you can video conference. You can video conference anytime you choose. It's the ability to attend from a non-public location in extraordinary circumstances. Under the law, and I've got it right in front of me, we can have video conferencing as long as you have a quorum in one or multiple locations, public locations that are advertised by Debbie during the law. Extraordinary situation says that if a gentleman person, a committee member is sick or traveling or can't attend.
Not traveling.
Traveling is not extraordinary.
Well,
Extraordinary, that is what rules whether they can attend and vote with extraordinary circumstances.
In the conversation we had yesterday with Roger, because he's out of town today, the local law that was introduced, thank you, at the board meeting on Friday, you only need that if you want to entertain the idea of the video conferencing. And that has to be adopted in order to allow that beginning June 15th. Because right now, the Zooming just isn't, it's not gonna exist. You can live stream, from what I understand, Roger has said over and over, you can live stream any meeting that you want to anytime. It's just the participation has to be in the case of extraordinary circumstances.
Under this law, it says video conference can be in one or multiple locations, as long as you have a quorum in those public locations. Doesn't have to be one, it can be two locations in public. I've been through this with 5 different organizations.
Daryl?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, there is interest in that. I think Zoom is, I think video meetings are a viable option to the board and to the committees. When we get, at breakneck speeds in life and people got multiple commitments, and you can make it to a public location, town hall of Putnam, Dresden, Whitehall, whatever that is, that public location that was announced, that to me is reasonable. So yes, I'm supporting the use of video teleconferencing meetings for committee and the Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Brian?
I'd like to ask Daryl. Daryl, is there any situation, because I don't quite understand the extraordinary part, where you're able to actually zoom in like you have been right along? Is there anything extraordinary that still allows that?
No.
I don't think there is. So I like where you're going. I just think extraordinary takes that all away what we're after.
Well, I think the conversation changed a little bit with the explanation, and that is, if I'm in a public location, I'm not right now. Candidly, I'm not. This is not my office is not open, in the mill is not open to the public. But just a few minutes away, there is a public location, the Putnam Town Hall. And I could attend from that location. It is open, people walk in, I got a big screen TV, a video camera. Everyone can participate from that location if they wanted to. So I'd have to go there, not here.
You notice what it could be there.
Is that what I thought extraordinary, that doesn't count?
No, but that can be noticed. That can be noticed. So there is a difference, and that's what I'm trying to unwind it. So if, as long as it's noticed, you can come from the Putnam Town Hall.
And the public have to be able to.
And the public has to be able to attend, and he can still vote, and he can be able to vote.
Yes.
And can vote.
I believe so.
Correct. That would include the quorum and
The
stuff.
quorum's here, and he's public, he can vote.
Okay.
And the public has to be able to see what he sees, so they'd have to be able to see his screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And they can, my computer goes through that. And the other piece of that, just so you personally know what I intend to do, is if I chair a meeting, I'm chairing from Washington County, and I will attend all Board of Supervisors meetings at the county building.
Unless it's extraordinary.
Right, giant snowstorm or something, I don't, you know.
You got an accent, you're not gonna.
I'm sorry, I got a whole series of, I read this and I've got questions. We're gonna talk about it. Use of video conferencing during a meeting may be used at the discretion of the committee or board, which means it's the board's decision at a board meeting. And it's the committee's decision, so the HHS committee should say at their discretion, yes, we're gonna zoom in, but government ops could vote 4-3 against it. So you could have some that could be on and some 30 off, right? It's the discretion of the committee or the board for their own entity, or the board for all the committees, or the, this is a little bit, it's not descriptive enough. Right? So does each committee have to pass a resolution or a motion allowing video conferencing?
Are you referring to the part that I believe Mr. Half wanted edited out, that Roger took out when it was discussed at the committee? Is that the sentence that?
That was just the extraordinary part. And according to Roger,
For the approval.
you can't change any of that language except for who approves the extraordinary reason, that because everything else is language right from the state, you're not allowed to change any.
So if I can't change it, then each committee will have to decide if they allow video conferencing. And the board will have to decide for board meetings for video conferencing, correct? We'd have to pass a resolution of all of those.
Maybe the board could decide for everybody unless the committee decides they don't want to do it. For
Then you take the word committee out of here. But you can't change the wording.
There's something about local government must adopt a local law, or individual public body must adopt a resolution for itself and its committees or subcommittees, or specifying that each committee or subcommittee may make their own determination. So I don't think you let the committees, you make one decision.
The board's going to decide for themselves and for all the committees and subcommittees.
Well, I would think that, I think there should be
Is that what that
one way
means?
to do it. From my perspective.
Yep.
Okay, all right, that's reasonably clear. Number 2, it says, consistent with law, and such written procedures are conspicuously posted on the county website. So those written procedures, whatever those procedures are, have to be determined by somebody, I assume, Roger, and then posted.
Those are the rules of the board, correct? That you're
Right.
referring to?
Yep.
Right.
Okay, so now let's get down to what Dana's talking about. Physically present at such a meeting due to extraordinary circumstances, including but not limited to disability, illness, caregiving responsibility, or any other significant or unexpected factor or event which precludes the member's physical attendance. We don't want to define that. We're going to leave that vague and open. What if it's challenged? Who's the arbiter to determine what's extraordinary or not?
There is no, it's you. The person who decides he can't come, he decides that it's extraordinary.
So based on what Dave said, if I decide it's extraordinary, I can zoom in from my house, or I have to go to a public building and zoom in.
I would think an example of caregiving would mean you're from wherever you
No,
are.
I'm part of the quorum. can I zoom in from my house if I determine it's extraordinary?
I don't know.
If it's an extraordinary, yes, you could come in. You don't have to be in a public location, I believe. You don't have to be.
Okay, but if it's, I just not feeling about driving over today.
No.
What if it's 5 minutes before the meeting and I can't get there? Now it's an extraordinary.
So we're determining it ourselves.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be determining to figure that out. Go ahead, Dana.
Speak for you.
I like Dana's definition. Leave it up to the supervisor to make that determination on their own.
Just don't explain a lot.
So I have to tell Debbie, I have an extraordinary circumstance. I'm zooming in today.
There you go.
If I don't have one, I can zoom in from my town hall as long as it's publicly noticed that, and people can come to the town hall. But if I determine it's extraordinary, I can zoom in from wherever I am.
But not at the last minute, right? You can't go to the town hall because she didn't notice.
How do I have to notice you? How do I tell you?
Same as when it comes out in our notices.
Right, you'd have to tell me, I think probably at least 5 days in advance when we send the notice out that you're gonna be, as a community member, you're gonna be at the town hall.
Right. It would just be another line on the back of our notice.
But the extraordinary one could be 3 minutes before the meeting starts.
So I call Debbie 3 minutes before the meeting starts. Debbie, I have an extraordinary circumstance today. I have to be home as a caregiver. I'm gonna zoom in. You're gonna allow me to be a part of the quorum and vote, right? There's a lot of responsibility in Debbie's shoulders all of a sudden.
As long as you're informed in one or multiple locations.
Right.
Okay.
As noticed.
Remember, committees, it's only the members you're talking about.
Right.
But outside this, if we pass this, we still have to pass a board resolution stating that it's the board who's determining, not the committees, right? We still have.
Well, the whole thing will be in that resolution for the board.
But that's the local law, though.
The board has to pass the local law.
I know, but we can't change the wording here. The board has to supersede the committees at some point with a separate resolution, right?
You just would have to do it and hope nobody ever sues you for doing it. We would keep it wrong because in it says that it's the committee decision, not the board deciding for the whole committee.
So.
Okay, wait a minute. Is it a good place to pause? Because Sue keeps raising her hand, and if she wants to comment where you are, she's being excluded. Go ahead, Sue.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Chairwoman. Debbie, I didn't quite understand what you said as far as if extraordinary circumstances, you can call 3 minutes before the board or before the committee meeting, and we would call you, and that would allow us our votes to count or not count, and also to meet quorum.
If you have a quorum that's in a public space,
yeah,
then you could join in with an extraordinary circumstance.
Right.
That should be totally out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
Not Brian's always
I
late.
mean, you might have to for that.
Dana's points are, that's the call of the supervisor. I'm defining extraordinary, Dan may define it differently, right? And Dana may define it even. That's our call.
Yeah, there was something
Voters
listed
will
there.
vote you out of office if they don't like your definition of extraordinary circumstance.
It'll take care of it.
I like that.
They'll never
know
know.
that.
I mean, from the big picture, I like that every part of that.
Dan.
Sue and Daryl are calling in too often from Putnam. Their folks don't like it. They will say them. We don't want it. Sorry, Dan, shut up.
No. You are a man of wisdom. I like listening to you. 3 things. One is, it is amazing how hard the board here, the supervisors are working on how to shirk their responsibilities of representing their people by not attending the meetings here. I'm very upset with that, but I know I have to abide by it. I hope it's a roll call vote because I'm going to vote no. Secondly, I think Cassie should from now on in government ops order lunch. And third, I have to go because I gotta be back at 1 from, but thank you for listening to me.
Well, works out perfect because you're knowing you're not here, so.
I can't vote it here,
Dave.
But you.
So I'm gonna point out in the local law proposing what this says in section 3. At any meeting of the board of supervisors, any meeting of the board of supervisors or committee thereof, use of video conferencing during a meeting may be used at the discretion of the committee or board, provided that a minimum number of members are present to fulfill the body's quorum requirement in the same physical location or locations, so you can have a quorum established in multiple locations, as long as they're properly noticed, where the public can attend the following criteria are met. So there is nothing in there that says anything about extraordinary circumstances.
Bill, that's done a little deeper.
Yeah, well, I know, but this video conferencing is not just about extraordinary circumstances. We, at any time that the board passes this law and a resolution, we can have video conferencing for any meeting as long as it's properly noticed in one or multiple locations that a quorum is present. If that's present, then the extraordinary circumstances that Dana can't meet it because his dog needs to run out and catch the turtles.
When they did run.
So, but that's when the extraordinary kicks in. It's not a main intent of video conferencing.
One thing, Matt, did you want to stay for this? Because you don't have to stay. You can go if you want. I just realized that you were still sitting there. And I didn't want you to think you had to be.
We're only discussing.
Well, that's why I said run before.
I don't know about Putnam, but Granville, I don't have a setup that if 10 people wanted to come, they'd all be crowding in my office next to my desk, like just trying to see it. I don't have an opportunity unless I retrofit my town hall that hold
Then I
it
guess
there in a
that's-
public meeting. So every time I don't show up, it's gonna be extraordinary.
You don't have like 10 people in your town board meeting. How are you gonna get 10 people to come to county board meeting?
I love that idea. That's great. No, that's,
Yeah. Hey, Matt, my desk is in the public meeting space, so I.
okay, maybe I'll have to move mine.
In Cambridge, I don't even have an office or a desk, so, or a TV, or internet most of the time. So don't complain.
So we need to pass it to the June meeting to allow it. If we don't pass it to the June meeting, there is no video conferencing for Washington County.
Correct.
Back to old fashioned.
But it goes back to the old law.
What's the old law?
Audio only, but no voting.
But no voting or quorum.
This replaces, doesn't this replace?
I thought it replaced.
Yeah.
The new law's going into effect either way. That's the way I understood.
Okay.
So you either have a new law or you have no law.
What's the one thing you said that can be changed in this?
The only thing was about who decides if it's exceptional.
That's it. We can't change any other wording.
That's what Roger said.
Pretty much.
We took that out of the local law.
Right.
Right.
It's
It's
removed.
been removed.
Okay.
Removed.
Can we get a copy of the new proposed local law before the next meeting?
Yeah, those the one.
There was no one you had Friday. Is that what?
Well, that's already removed.
It's only the one.
This is board or committee.
I think
No,
it's the
it's
one.
about the exceptional.
One I've got,
Oh, you want it?
one I've got in front of me takes extraordinary, doesn't have extraordinary in it.
This does, this from Friday does.
No, no.
One I've got-
Decide.
Who
Who
decides?
decides is out of mine.
Who decides it's extra?
That's the only thing that we had an option of.
We're gonna have a lot of flat tires, so we're not gonna remove that. Magically get fixed. That's extraordinary.
What's gonna happen? Somebody's not gonna show
You
up.
have to slash your tire on the way in.
No, we just discussed it. We've already set the public hearing.
As far as we're concerned,
We're gonna vote on this in June no matter what, if we, right?
Right, so if you want to move forward with this,
We can't move it or kill it today, can we? It's coming out next week.
you can decide you don't want to do it, I believe.
Well,
We're not here,
there'll
we've
be a
already been
resolution
introduced.
to adopt local law,
Yeah.
introductory local law, whatever the number.
well, we still have that public hearing.
Yes,
Right.
So then
Before we go.
after that, then the procedures will have to be spelled out.
The way I understood it, Mr. Shaw's gonna vote no either way, right?
Right, I don't think that's really right, but not to delay along, because I think we would get more people who would be supervisors if they could video
I think
conference,
there's been more participation.
more participation. There's
I
a
don't
lot of
see-
people that won't do that don't do it because. of
I don't see how I can
crowd.
ever improve the quality of supervisors at this board right now.
There's no question, everyone believes they're extraordinary, so I think we're good.
Okay, is there anything else? Any other business? Any other? Okay, adjourned.
Yeah.